In the cold, silent expanse of space, a lone vessel drifted through the endless void. It was an ancient ship, its surface scarred by time and countless micrometeorite impacts. Inside, suspended in a chamber of glowing blue liquid, floated a man named Ethan Cole. For centuries, he had been asleep, his body preserved by advanced technology that kept him alive but unconscious. The world he once knew was long gone, replaced by something entirely new. Ethan's mind stirred as the ship's systems began to falter. Alarms blared faintly, their sounds muffled by the thick walls of the cryogenic pod. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened. At first, everything was blurry, like looking through frosted glass. His body felt heavy, unused to movement after so much time in stasis. He blinked several times, trying to focus on the dim lights flickering above him. A low hum filled the air, interrupted occasionally by sharp beats from nearby panels. The chamber door hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. Ethan gasped as fresh, though stale, air rushed into his lungs. He stumbled forward, his legs wobbling like a newborn calf's. Catching himself against the edge of the pod, he looked around. The interior of the ship was dark and eerily quiet, save for the occasional creak of metal as it shifted in response to the vacuum outside. Dust coated every surface, evidence of decades, or perhaps centuries, of neglect. Ethan's head throbbed with confusion. Memories came back in flashes, disjointed and unclear. He remembered Earth, a planet teeming with life. He recalled standing alongside others, wearing the uniform emblazoned with symbols he no longer understood. There were battles, explosions, and then nothing. Just darkness. And now this place, unfamiliar yet somehow familiar, like a dream half remembered upon waking. As he moved cautiously through the narrow corridors, his footsteps echoed softly. Panels along the walls displayed cryptic messages in languages he barely recognized. One screen showed a map of stars, many of which were marked with red dots. What did they mean? Why was he here? Questions swirled in his mind, each more pressing than the last. Suddenly, Ethan stopped. Something inside him stirred, not physically, but deep within his core. It felt like electricity coursing through his veins, tingling and unpredictable. Without warning, objects around him began to tremble. A loose panel floated upward, hovering momentarily before clattering to the floor. Startled, Ethan clenched his fists, trying to steady himself. But the sensation only grew stronger, building until it erupted in a burst of light that illuminated the corridor. Panting, Ethan leaned against the wall, his heart pounding. What was happening to him? These powers, abilities, he didn't remember having them before, or did he? Fragments of memory surfaced. Training sessions under the watchful eye of a stern man called General Reed, learning to control energy flows, practicing techniques designed to protect humanity. Was that real? Or just another fragment of a fractured past? Determined to find answers, Ethan pressed onward. He reached what appeared to be the ship's bridge. Dim screens flickered to life as he approached, displaying fragments of data. One phrase caught his attention: Project Guardian. It meant something to him, though he couldn't quite grasp why. As he stared at the words, a sudden jolt rocked the ship. Ethan grabbed hold of a console to steady himself. Outside the viewport, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly. But there in the distance, something moved, a shadowy form drifting closer. Ethan's instincts screamed danger. Whatever it wasn't natural, and it was heading straight for him. In a quiet observatory nestled in the desert of New Mexico, Mia Harper sat hunched over her computer screen. The room was dimly lit, save for the soft glow of monitors displaying rows of data and star charts. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly, dotted with countless stars that seemed to wink at her through the telescope lenses. But tonight, something felt different. Something wasn't right. Mia had spent years studying the cosmos, fascinated by the mysteries it held. She loved the way the universe seemed infinite yet knowable, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But recently, her research had taken a darker turn. Over the past few months, she'd noticed strange anomalies, stars disappearing without explanation. Entire systems blinked out of existence, leaving behind only cold, empty voids. At first, she thought it might be equipment error or some glitch in the data. But the pattern was too consistent, too deliberate to ignore. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she cross-referenced her findings with other observatories around the world. To her dismay, they confirmed what she feared. This wasn't an isolated event. It was happening everywhere. Star after star, system after system, erased as if they had never been there. What could cause such destruction? Was it some kind of cosmic phenomenon, or something far more sinister? As she sifted through the data, one signal caught her eye. It was faint, almost drowned out by the noise of space, but unmistakably artificial. A distress call. Her heart raced as she traced its origin. The coordinates led to a distant region of space, far beyond anything humanity had explored. But what intrigued her most was the frequency. It matched records from a classified government project, Project Guardian, a program rumored to have been abandoned decades ago. Maya leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Could it be true? Could someone, or something, from Project Guardian still be out there? If so, why were they sending a signal now, after all these years? She knew she couldn't keep this discovery to herself. This wasn't just about science anymore. It was about survival. Whatever was causing the stars to vanish posed a threat not just to distant galaxies, but potentially to Earth itself. The next morning, Mia drove to the nearby NASA facility, clutching a folder filled with her findings. She requested a meeting with the director, Dr. Samuel Carter, a no-nonsense man known for his skepticism. When she presented her evidence, he listened silently, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "You're telling me you think some old government project holds the key to stopping whatever this is?" "It's our best lead," Maya replied firmly. "If we don't investigate, we might miss our only chance to stop it before it reaches us." After a long pause, Dr. Carter nodded. He agreed to authorize a mission, assigning Captain Lucas Webb and his crew aboard the Odyssey *, a state-of-the-art exploration vessel. Though reluctant, Lucas accepted the task, knowing the stakes were high. As preparations began, Mia joined the team, determined to uncover the truth. Days later, the Odyssey * launched into orbit, carrying the hopes of humanity with it. Inside the ship, tension hung thick in the air. The crew exchanged uneasy glances as they reviewed Mia's data. None of them fully understood what they were dealing with, but one thing was clear: failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, light years away, Ethan Cole remained unaware of the events unfolding on Earth. Trapped in the drifting ship, he continued to grapple with his awakening powers and fragmented memories. Little did he know that help was coming, and that together, they would face a darkness unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Ethan Cole sat alone in the dimly lit bridge of the ancient ship, staring at the blinking screens around him. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the fragments of information flashing before his eyes. Words like Project Guardian and Classified Mission appeared repeatedly, but their meanings eluded him. The more he read, the more questions piled up. Who was he? Why was he here? And what had happened to the world he once knew? As if on cue, a sharp pain shot through his temples. Ethan winced, clutching his head as visions flooded his mind. Images of battles fought among the stars, of towering alien creatures, and of a blinding explosion that seemed to swallow everything. But one thing stood out: a shadowy figure, vast and menacing, spreading darkness wherever it went. It wasn't just a memory. It felt alive, as if it were watching him even now. The pain subsided, leaving Ethan breathless. He glanced around the room, half expecting to see someone, or something, there with him. But he was alone. Still, the sensation lingered, an oppressive weight pressing down on his chest. Whatever that shadow was, it wasn't gone. It was waiting. Trying to distract himself, Ethan focused on controlling the strange energy coursing through his body. Earlier, he'd accidentally caused objects to float and lights to flicker. Now, he held out his hand, concentrating hard. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a small metal tool nearby began to rise from the floor. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He moved his fingers slightly, and the tool followed, hovering midair as if tethered to an invisible string. But the moment he let his guard down, the object dropped with a clang. Frustrated, Ethan sighed. These powers were unpredictable, dangerous even. If he couldn't learn to control them, they might end up destroying him, or worse, anyone else who crossed his path. His thoughts were interrupted by another jolt of the ship. This time, it was stronger, knocking him off balance. Stumbling to the viewport, Ethan peered outside. The shadowy form he'd seen earlier was closer now, its edges rippling like smoke. Fear gripped him, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had no weapons, no way to defend himself. All he had were these newfound abilities, and memories he couldn't fully trust. Flashes of training exercises came back to him. A man named General Reed stood beside him, guiding his movements. Focus, Reed's voice echoed in his mind. You're stronger than you think. Ethan clenched his fists, trying to channel that strength. As the shadow loomed nearer, tendrils of darkness snaked toward the ship. Instinctively, Ethan raised his hands, willing the energy within him to respond. A brilliant burst of light erupted from his palms, shooting outward like a flare. The tendrils recoiled, retreating into the void. For a brief moment, the shadow hesitated, as if surprised. Then, with a low hum, it faded into the distance, disappearing entirely. Ethan collapsed onto the floor, exhausted. His arms trembled, and sweat dripped from his brow. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't defeated. It had merely withdrawn, and it would be back. As he caught his breath, Ethan realized something important. He wasn't just a passenger on this ship. He was part of something bigger, something tied to the fate of the universe. The memories, the powers, the shadow, they were all connected. But understanding how would take time, something he didn't have much of. For now, Ethan resolved to keep moving forward. Somewhere out there, answers awaited. And maybe, just maybe, allies too. Little did he know, help was already on its way. Across the vastness of space, the Odyssey sped toward him, carrying people who would soon change everything, for better or worse. The Odyssey sailed through the vast emptiness of space, its sleek design cutting silently through the void. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of control panels and monitors. Captain Lucas Webb stood at the helm, his sharp eyes scanning the data streaming in from the ship's sensors. He wasn't a man who showed fear easily, but even he couldn't shake the unease growing in his chest. The mission felt different this time, more urgent, more dangerous. Mia Harper sat nearby, her fingers flying over a keyboard as she analyzed the faint distress signal that had led them here. Her heart raced with a mix of hope and dread. What would they find when they reached the source? Would it be a survivor, someone who could shed light on the mysterious disappearances of stars? Or would it be something else entirely? She glanced at the others on the bridge, reading the tension etched into their expressions. Everyone knew the risks, but no one voiced their fears aloud. Days passed in silence as the Odyssey closed the distance to the coordinates Mia had provided. Finally, the ancient vessel came into view on the ship's scanners, a battered relic drifting aimlessly through space. Its surface was scared and pitted, evidence of centuries spent adrift. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't just an old ship, it was a ghost of humanity's past. "Prepare for docking," Captain Webb ordered, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. The Odyssey approached cautiously, its magnetic clamps locking onto the derelict craft with a low hum. As the airlock sealed, a team suited up to investigate. Mia insisted on joining them, unwilling to wait while others uncovered what might be humanity's last hope. The interior of the ancient ship was dark and cold, its systems barely functional. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled stale. Flashlights cut through the gloom as the team moved carefully through the narrow corridors. Every step echoed loudly, amplifying the eerie stillness around them. It felt like stepping into a tomb. Then they found him. Ethan Cole lay slumped against a wall, his face pale but alive. His clothes were tattered, and his body looked frail, as though he hadn't eaten or moved in years. When the light hit his face, his eyes fluttered open. At first, he seemed confused, disoriented. But then recognition dawned, and his gaze hardened. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice raspy but firm. Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding. "My name is Mia Harper. We detected your distress signal and came to help. Can you tell us what happened?" Ethan hesitated, studying her face. Something about her sincerity made him lower his guard. "I don't remember everything," he admitted. "But I know one thing. We don't have much time." Captain Webb frowned. "Time for what?" Before Ethan could answer, a sudden tremor rocked the ship. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. Outside, the shadowy form they had seen earlier returned, its tendrils prodding the hull of the ancient vessel. Ethan's expression darkened. "It's here," he said grimly, "and it won't stop until it finds me." The urgency in his voice sent a chill through the group. Without wasting another second, they helped Ethan to his feet and guided him back to the Odyssey. As they boarded their ship, the shadow loomed closer, its presence almost suffocating. Once inside, Captain Webb gave the order to detach and retreat. The clamps released, and the Odyssey pulled away just as the shadow lashed out, narrowly missing them. Back on the bridge, Ethan collapsed into a seat, his body trembling with exhaustion. He looked at Mia, then at the rest of the crew. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. "But now that you're here, you need to know the truth. The stars aren't just disappearing. They're being consumed by something called the Umbra." No one spoke. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Whatever the Umbra was, it was clear that stopping it wouldn't be easy. But as the Odyssey sped away from the ancient ship, leaving the shadow behind, for now, the crew realized their journey was only beginning. Back on the Odyssey, Ethan sat in a small meeting room, surrounded by the crew. His hands were clasped tightly together, his knuckles white with tension. The others watched him closely, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Mia sat across from him, her notebook open, ready to jot down every word he said. Captain Webb leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his sharp eyes never leaving Ethan's face. "So," Ethan began, his voice low but steady, "you want to know what's happening out there." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "There's something called the Umbra. It's not like anything you've ever seen. It's not just a force or a creature. It's alive. And it feeds on destruction." The room fell silent. Ethan's words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Mia broke the silence first. "What do you mean by feeds? What is it doing to the stars?" Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples as if trying to ease a headache. "It consumes them. Whole systems, planets, everything. It doesn't just destroy, it erases, like they never existed." He looked at Mia, then at the others. "And it's getting stronger. Every star it takes gives it more power." Captain Webb frowned. "If this thing is as dangerous as you say, why hasn't anyone noticed before now?" "Because it moves slowly," Ethan replied. "At least, that's how it started. But now," he trailed off, his jaw tightening, "now it's faster, hungrier. And it knows I'm here." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Dr. Rachel Moore, the ship's medic, spoke up for the first time. "How do you know all this? How are you involved?" Ethan hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I was part of a project, a secret mission called Project Guardian. We were sent to stop the Umbra before it reached Earth, but something went wrong. I don't remember everything, but I know I was exposed to something. Energy, maybe. It changed me." He held up his hand, letting a faint glow flicker briefly between his fingers. "This is part of what I am now." Mia leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "You said it knows you're here. Does that mean it's tracking you?" Ethan nodded. "It's been following me since I woke up. That shadow you saw earlier, it's part of the Umbra. It's testing me, waiting for the right moment to strike." Captain Webb straightened, his tone firm. "Then we need to figure out how to fight it. If this thing is as powerful as you say, we can't let it reach Earth." "I've tried fighting it before," Ethan said grimly, "but I wasn't strong enough. Not alone." Rachel chimed in again, her voice gentle but determined. "You're not alone anymore. We're here. Tell us what we need to do." For the first time since waking up, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. These people, strangers from a future he didn't recognize, were willing to stand with him. Maybe humanity hadn't given up after all. Over the next few hours, Ethan shared everything he could remember about the Umbra, its origins, its weaknesses, and the strange connection he felt to it. He explained how it thrived on despair and chaos, feeding off the fear of those it hunted. The crew listened intently, piecing together a plan. They would trace the signal Ethan had picked up earlier, hoping it would lead them to the heart of the Umbra's domain. As the meeting ended, Maya stayed behind, watching Ethan closely. "Do you think we can really stop it?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "I don't know. But I do know one thing. We have to try." Outside, the stars twinkled innocently, unaware of the darkness creeping closer. The *Odyssey* sped onward, carrying its crew toward an uncertain fate. For better or worse, their journey into the abyss had begun. The *Odyssey* sailed deeper into the unknown, its path guided by the faint traces of energy left behind by the Umbra. The crew worked tirelessly, their movements sharp and focused as they prepared for whatever lay ahead. Ethan spent most of his time in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the endless sea of stars. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, memories of battles long past, visions of the shadowy entity, and the faces of the people now depending on him. He wasn't sure he deserved their trust, but he couldn't deny the determination in their eyes. As they traveled, the signs of destruction became impossible to ignore. Entire star systems were gone, reduced to lifeless voids that stretched endlessly across the cosmos. The crew stopped at one such system, its once bright sun now extinguished, leaving only cold, drifting debris. Maya led a team to scan the area, hoping to find clues about the Umbra's methods. What they discovered chilled them to the bone. "It's like nothing is left," Alex Carter, the ship's engineer, said as he examined the data. "No radiation, no remnants of planets or asteroids. It's as if this whole system was erased from existence." Mia nodded, her face pale. "That's exactly what happened. The Umbra doesn't just destroy, it consumes everything. Energy, matter, even light. Nothing escapes it." Ethan stood nearby, his fists clenched as he absorbed the scene. Memories surfaced unbidden, images of worlds crumbling under the weight of the Umbra's hunger. He remembered the screams of those who had tried to flee, their voices swallowed by the darkness. Shaking his head, he pushed the thoughts aside. There was no time for grief. They had to keep moving. Back on the ship, tensions began to rise. Some of the crew whispered among themselves, questioning whether following Ethan was the right choice. Captain Webb overheard their doubts and called everyone to the bridge. "Listen up," he said, his voice firm. "We're all scared, but fear won't save us, or Earth. If we don't stop this thing, none of us will have a home to go back to." His words quieted the murmurs, but the unease remained. Ethan felt it too, pressing down on him like a weight. He knew the crew had every reason to doubt him. After all, he was just a man, a broken relic of a forgotten mission. Yet, despite their fears, they continued to follow him. That gave him strength. Days later, the Odyssey encountered another anomaly, a massive cloud of ash and dust floating eerily in space. As they approached, strange shapes emerged within the haze. Fragments of ships, buildings, and other structures, all frozen in time. It was the remains of an entire civilization, wiped out without warning. "This place gives me the creeps," Alex muttered as he worked to stabilize the ship's sensors. Even the usually calm Dr. Rachel Moore seemed uneasy, her hands trembling slightly as she recorded notes. Ethan stepped forward, his expression grim. "This is what happens when the Umbra wins. These people didn't stand a chance." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as shadowy tendrils shot out from the haze, wrapping around the hull. Lights flickered, and panels sparked as the crew scrambled to regain control. Ethan's instincts kicked in. Raising his hands, he channeled his energy, creating a barrier that pushed the tendrils back. The effort left him gasping, sweat pouring down his face. "We need to get out of here," Captain Webb shouted. With Ethan's powers holding the shadows at bay, the crew managed to break free and retreat. As the Odyssey sped away, Ethan collapsed onto the floor, drained but alive. Looking up at the others, he said, "That was just a taste of what's coming. If we don't stop it soon, this will happen to Earth too." The room fell silent. For the first time, the full weight of their mission hit home. The stakes were clear. Failure meant extinction. But as Mia knelt beside Ethan, offering him a reassuring smile, he realized something important. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting together. And that made all the difference. As the Odyssey continued its journey, the crew worked to repair the damage caused by their encounter with the shadowy tendrils. Alex Carter spent hours in the engine room, his hands smudged with grease as he patched up the ship's systems. Dr. Rachel Moore tended to Ethan, monitoring his vitals and ensuring he hadn't overexerted himself during the attack. Despite her calm demeanor, she couldn't hide the concern in her eyes. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Rachel said gently as she adjusted a medical scanner. "If you keep using your powers like that, you'll burn out." Ethan gave her a weak smile. "I don't have much of a choice, do I?" Rachel hesitated before responding. "Maybe not, but you're not alone anymore. Let us help you." Her words struck a chord with Ethan. For so long, he'd carried the burden of his mission by himself, haunted by memories of failure. Now, surrounded by people who believed in him, he felt a glimmer of hope. Slowly, he began to open up, sharing more about his past and the training he'd undergone as part of Project Guardian. The others listened intently, eager to learn how they could contribute. Mia Harper became especially close to Ethan, spending hours discussing strategies and theories. She helped him piece together fragments of his memory, sketching diagrams of alien technology and energy patterns based on his descriptions. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Ethan found himself relying on her more than he expected. Together, they formed a plan to track the Umbra's movements, using traces of residual energy left in its wake. The crew also grew closer as they faced the dangers ahead. Alex often joked around, trying to lighten the mood, while Captain Webb kept everyone focused with his steady leadership, even the quieter members of the team, like Communications Officer Karen Fields, found ways to support the mission. Karen spent hours fine-tuning the ship's scanners, determined to detect any sign of the Umbra before it could strike again. One evening, as the Odyssey drifted through a relatively calm region of space, the crew gathered in the mess hall for a rare moment of relaxation. Mia brought up the topic of Earth, asking everyone what they missed most about home. Alex talked about baseball games and barbecues, while Rachel mentioned her love of hiking in the mountains. When it was Ethan's turn, he hesitated. "I don't remember much about Earth," he admitted, "but I remember the people, how we came together when it mattered most. That's what gives me hope." His words resonated with the group, reminding them why they had signed up for this mission. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone back on Earth. The next day, the Odyssey entered a dense nebula, its swirling clouds of gas glowing faintly in shades of purple and blue. It was beautiful, but also dangerous. Visibility was poor, and the ship's sensors struggled to penetrate the thick haze. Tension mounted as the crew navigated cautiously, knowing the Umbra could be lurking nearby. Suddenly, the ship jolted violently. Shadowy forms materialized outside the windows, twisting and writhing like living smoke. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to respond. Ethan rushed to the bridge, his body trembling with exhaustion, but his resolve unwavering. Once again, he raised his hands, summoning a burst of energy to repel the attack. This time, however, the shadows fought back, slamming against the barrier with terrifying force. "We can't hold them off forever," Captain Webb shouted. "Then we run," Ethan replied, his voice firm despite the strain. With the crew working together, the Odyssey broke free from the nebula, narrowly escaping the grasp of the Umbra. Back in the safety of open space, the crew regrouped, their bond stronger than ever. They knew the road ahead would be perilous, but they also knew one thing for certain: as long as they stood united, they had a chance. And sometimes, that was enough. The Odyssey sailed closer to the heart of the Umbra's domain, guided by Ethan's instincts and Mia's calculations. The crew worked tirelessly, their faces pale but determined as they prepared for what lay ahead. None of them spoke much. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. They all knew the next step would be the hardest, and possibly the last. Ethan stood at the viewport, staring into the swirling black vortex that loomed before them. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a massive void surrounded by shattered debris and remnants of destroyed worlds. Shadows danced along its edges, pulsing with an eerie energy that made his skin crawl. He could feel it calling to him, whispering promises of power and despair. It wanted him to come closer, to give in. Mia approached quietly, her notebook tucked under one arm. "You okay?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded, though his hands were clenched tightly at his sides. "I've been here before," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In my dreams. This is where it ends." She frowned, studying his face. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then turned to look at her. "I think I'm supposed to go in there alone. The Umbra, it knows me. If anyone can stop it, it's me." Mia shook her head firmly. "No way. We're not letting you face this thing by yourself. It's not your fight," Ethan replied, his tone gentle but resolute. "If I fail, Earth still has a chance as long as you're alive." Before Maya could argue further, Captain Webb called everyone to the bridge. The tension was palpable as the crew gathered around the main console. On the screen, data streamed in from the vortex, showing readings of immense energy fluctuations. Whatever was inside, it was growing stronger. "We need to make a decision," Captain Webb said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Do we proceed, or do we retreat?" "I'm going in," Ethan said without hesitation. "It's the only way." The room fell silent. Rachel stepped forward, her eyes filled with concern. "Ethan, you're exhausted. You've already pushed yourself too far. What happens if you can't?" "I'll find a way," Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. "This is why I was chosen, why I survived." After a long pause, Captain Webb nodded reluctantly. "Then we'll get you as close as we can. But know this, we're not leaving until we see you come out." Ethan managed a faint smile. "Thank you." Preparations began immediately. Alex reinforced Ethan's suit, adding extra shielding and recalibrating its energy systems to handle the strain. Maya reviewed every piece of data they had, searching for any advantage they might use. Karen monitored communications, ensuring the ship stayed connected to Ethan for as long as possible. As the Odyssey approached the vortex, The shadows outside grew more aggressive, lashing out at the hull with increasing ferocity. Ethan activated his powers, creating a protective barrier around the ship while the crew worked to stabilize its systems. Finally, they reached the edge of the void. Standing in the airlock, Ethan took a deep breath. The others gathered behind him, their expressions a mix of fear and admiration. Rachel handed him a small device. "It's a beacon," she explained. "If things go south, activate it. We'll come for you." Ethan nodded, slipping the device into his pocket. He glanced at each of them one last time, memorizing their faces. Then, without another word, he stepped out into the abyss. The moment he entered the vortex, the world around him dissolved into chaos. Swirling darkness pressed in on all sides, pulling at his mind and body. Visions assaulted him, images of destruction, of lives lost, of worlds consumed. But beneath it all, he felt something else. Anger. Not just his own, but the collective rage of everyone who had ever suffered because of the Umbra. Drawing on that emotion, Ethan focused his energy, channeling it into a single point. He could feel the Umbra nearby, its presence overwhelming yet oddly fragile. It fed on fear and despair, but it couldn't withstand hope or light. With a roar, Ethan unleashed everything he had, flooding the vortex with blinding energy. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in defiance. For a brief moment, the darkness wavered, retreating under the onslaught. But the effort came at a cost. Ethan's body trembled violently, his vision blurring as pain surged through him. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Outside, the crew watched anxiously as the vortex began to shrink, its edges flickering like dying embers. "Ethan," Mia shouted over the comms, "you have to get out of there." Summoning the last of his strength, Ethan staggered toward the exit. Behind him, the vortex collapsed, sealing the Umbra away once more. As he stumbled back onto the Odyssey *, the crew rushed to his side, helping him to safety. For now, the threat was contained, but at what price? The Odyssey * trembled as the vortex collapsed behind them, its dark energy dissipating into the void. Ethan lay on the floor of the airlock, his body trembling and weak. The crew rushed to his side, their faces a mix of relief and worry. Dr. Rachel Moore knelt beside him, her medical scanner already in hand. "Ethan, can you hear me?" she asked, her voice urgent but calm. "Stay with us." He managed a faint nod, though his eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow. Mia hovered nearby, clutching the notebook she had carried throughout the mission. Her hand shook as she watched Rachel tend to him. "Is he going to be okay?" she whispered. "I don't know," Rachel admitted, her brow furrowed. "His vitals are unstable. Whatever he did in there, it took everything out of him." Captain Webb stepped forward, his expression grim. "We need to get him to the medical bay. Now." The crew worked quickly, lifting Ethan onto a stretcher and carrying him to the ship's infirmary. As they moved, Ethan's mind drifted in and out of consciousness. He saw flashes of the battle within the vortex, the overwhelming darkness, the surge of energy he had unleashed, and the fragile hope that had kept him fighting. But now, that hope felt distant, slipping through his fingers like sand. In the medical bay, Rachel worked tirelessly to stabilize him. She hooked him up to monitors and administered fluids, her movements precise but hurried. Alex stood by, holding tools and equipment as she called for them. The rest of the crew gathered outside, their faces pale with worry. "He saved us," Karen said quietly, breaking the silence. "If he hadn't done what he did, we'd all be gone." Maya finished, her voice barely audible. Tears welled in her eyes as she thought about everything Ethan had sacrificed. He had faced the darkness alone, knowing the odds were against him, and somehow he had prevailed. Hours passed, and Ethan's condition remained critical. His body was shutting down, unable to sustain the strain of the immense power he had channeled. Rachel stayed by his side, refusing to give up. "Come on, Ethan," she murmured, adjusting an IV drip. "You've got to pull through." Finally, Ethan stirred. His eyes fluttered open, meeting Rachel's gaze. Did it work?" he rasped, his voice weak. Rachel nodded, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "It worked. The Umbra is contained, for now." Ethan let out a shaky breath, closing his eyes again. "Good." Mia entered the room cautiously, her heart pounding. She approached the bed, hesitating before speaking. "Ethan, thank you. For everything." He opened his eyes slightly, managing a faint smile. "Take care of them, Mia. Promise me." "I promise," she said, her voice cracking. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. It was cold, but she held on tightly, unwilling to let go. As the hours dragged on, Ethan grew weaker. The crew gathered around him, each offering words of gratitude and support. Captain Webb placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, his usual stoic demeanor softened by emotion. "You've done more than anyone could have asked," he said. "We won't forget you." Ethan's breathing slowed, his body finally succumbing to the toll it had endured. But even as his physical form faded, something lingered. A faint warmth, a sense of presence. It was as if part of him remained, watching over them, ensuring they stayed safe. When the monitors flatlined, the room fell silent. Tears streamed down Mia's face as she clung to Ethan's hand, while the others bowed their heads in respect. They had lost a hero, but his sacrifice had given them a chance to protect Earth and honor his memory. Outside the ship, the stars shone brightly, free from the shadow of the Umbra. For now, the universe seemed at peace, but the crew knew the fight wasn't truly over. As long as darkness existed, there would always be battles to fight. And thanks to Ethan, they were ready to face them. Together, they vowed to carry his legacy forward, united by the belief that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way. The Odyssey returned to Earth under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn. The journey home had been quiet, each crew member lost in their own thoughts. Ethan's sacrifice weighed heavily on them, but so did the responsibility he had entrusted to them. They carried not just his memory, but also the knowledge that the fight against darkness was far from over. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, Mia stared out the viewport, her eyes tracing the curve of the planet below. It looked peaceful, untouched by the horrors they had faced in the depths of space. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel relief. Earth was safe, for now. But she knew it wouldn't stay that way unless humanity remained vigilant. The crew was greeted as heroes upon landing. News of their mission had spread quickly, thanks to Karen's detailed reports sent ahead. Crowds gathered at the spaceport, cheering and holding signs that read "Protectors of Earth" and "Thank you." Captain Webb addressed the crowd briefly, his words simple but heartfelt. "We didn't do this alone," he said, glancing at Mia. "We stood together, and we honored those who gave everything to protect us." Mia stepped forward next, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. She spoke about Ethan, his bravery, his selflessness, and the burden he had carried for so long. He reminded us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can find strength in unity, she said. And he taught us that hope is our greatest weapon. After the ceremony, Mia retreated to her observatory in New Mexico. The quiet solitude helped her process everything that had happened. She spent hours poring over the data collected during the mission, determined to uncover any remaining secrets about the Umbra and Project Guardian. Her work became a tribute to Ethan, a way to ensure his sacrifice wasn't forgotten. Rachel often joined her, bringing coffee and updates from the medical research team. Together, they studied the effects of the energy Ethan had channeled, hoping to understand how it could be used to defend Earth in the future. Alex and Karen collaborated on new technologies inspired by the alien designs Ethan had described, creating prototypes that might one day shield humanity from similar threats. Captain Webb, meanwhile, worked with global leaders to establish a new initiative, the Guardian Alliance. Its mission was clear: to monitor the stars, prepare for potential dangers, and unite nations in the defense of Earth. The project was named in honor of Ethan, a reminder of the man who had awakened from centuries of sleep to save a world he barely knew. Though Ethan was gone, his presence lingered. Some nights, Maya swore she felt a faint warmth in the air, as if he were still watching over them. Others reported seeing brief flashes of light in the night sky, like distant stars winking in acknowledgement. Whether it was real or imagined didn't matter. It kept his memory alive. Years passed, and the story of Ethan Cole became legend. Children learned about him in school, their imagination sparked by tales of the lost protector who had sacrificed himself to save humanity. Statues were erected in his honor, and observatories around the world bore his name. But for Mia, the true legacy of Ethan wasn't in monuments or stories. It was in the way people came together, inspired by his example. Communities grew stronger, nations more cooperative, and scientists more innovative. Humanity began looking to the stars not with fear, but with curiosity and determination. One evening, as Mia stood on the observatory's roof, gazing at the constellations above, she smiled softly. Somewhere out there, Ethan's spirit lived on, a silent sentinel among the stars. And here on Earth, his influence continued to shine brightly, guiding humanity toward a brighter future. For while darkness still lingered in the universe, humanity had proven one thing. As long as they stood united, they could face anything. And in that unity, Ethan's light would never fade.